Good morning. This is Suzanne Brown, Senior Vice President, Public Affairs and Communications of the Longview Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for joining our coffee conversation with Todd Staples, President of the Texas Oil and Natural Gas Association. This is part of our advocacy conversation supporting our trade area economy. I'd like first to begin with a few housekeeping items. First, this webinar is being recorded and will be made available online at www.longviewchamber.com. For those on the line, you will receive an email later today with a link to listen to this recording again or to share it with other folks. Next, there are a couple of features I'd like to make you aware of. You will be muted through the presentation. You will be able to listen to our presenter and see the visual presentation provided. If you do not see the green title screen at this time, please look to your toolbar for the Go To Webinar icon. It looks like a little flower. Lastly, even though you are muted, this will be an interactive webinar. If there is time at the end, we will take live audience questions. This will be done by attendees clicking the hand icon, and the organizer will unmute to allow the questions to be asked. If there is not enough time at the end, attendees may submit questions, and we will follow up with our presenters to get the answers back to you. For this option, please find the questions section. You can type in this feature with any questions you want to ask throughout the presentation. We would like to take the opportunity to thank the sponsors that make programs like this possible. Thank you to our presenting sponsor, AEP SWEPCO, and gold sponsors, Austin Bank, Republic Services, Spring Hill State Bank, and Starfish Ad Age. The Longview Chamber of Commerce is thinking of you during this difficult time. We recognize this is a painful season, and our business community is looking for answers. We may not have all the answers, but we do have access to experts in specific areas to provide you with a place to start. When we planned this conversation earlier this year, we envisioned a different view than the reality of today. We are honored to have Todd Staples, President of the Texas Oil and Natural Gas Association, help us navigate this new reality. Todd Staples, we turn this program over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. It's an honor to join you today, and I'm excited to do it virtually online, to have a conversation with you and to have a presentation about the current state of affairs in the oil and gas industry. Longview is close to my real home of Palestine, which I love East Texas and am happy every time I can be in East Texas. And so I have a short PowerPoint presentation for you today that I think that I'm able to guide and go through. I don't see it on the screen yet in front of me. If I need some more instructions on what to do to bring that up, please let me know. But I look forward to having a conversation about the state of affairs of the industry, what it means to our state, the difficulties that we're going through today, and what direction that we think we'll be headed after this pandemic is concluded, which we all are ready for that to happen.
Todd, we will share our screen on this end, so you can just tell us when to go to the next slide.
Okay, that'll be great. And so let's just go ahead and go into that next slide. As I discuss with you the oil and gas community, I want to tell you a little bit about the Texas Oil and Gas Association. We celebrated our 100-year anniversary last year. It's an exciting time to think that oil and natural gas has been playing a positive role in this state's economy for well over 100 years. At the Texas Oil and Gas Association, our members include every aspect of the oil and gas industry, from upstream producers to our transportation and storage pipelines to our refiners and our service companies. We're excited about their participation in our organization because it gives us a really good cross-section of the entire industry that helps us focus on 4 focal points that we work on: legislation, regulation, judicial affairs, and then public affairs. And we know that oil and gas is important to our state's economy. We know that a strong, safe, and reliable energy supply is indispensable, and we are glad to be playing a role in our state's economy. And we'll discuss with you on the next slide some things we want to cover here today. On the next slide, you're going to see about 4 questions here on your screen. the current condition of the industry that will be interesting for us to discuss for sure. I may pin a little bit of that discussion until more toward the end of the day. We know that yesterday was a historic day in the history of our nation and the history of oil and natural gas. Yesterday, oil started trading in the negative ranges, including almost up to $40 a barrel negative because of the current pandemic, the overproduction, and the lack of storage capacity. Early this morning, oil shot up almost 100%, and it was still trading at negative numbers. And so that shows you the current condition of the industry that I'll discuss a little bit more later. I do also want to cover the role of oil and gas in Texas historically. What is our energy future, and what role does energy play in the security of our nation? So we'll go to the next slide here and have a conversation just about how big of a role oil and natural gas has played in Texas. So in 2019, this industry paid over $16 billion in state and local taxes and state royalties. That's a phenomenal amount. That's, $44 million a day that our industry has contributed. It contributes 31% of our private sector economy when you look at the direct and indirect contributions. And last year, this industry employed over 428,000 Texans. And so when this industry is at a standstill like it is today because of the lack of demand coupled with the Saudi-Russian price war, you have this very unique phenomenon that we find ourselves in 2020. When we announce these numbers, we're always careful to say growth is not guaranteed. This is a market that we operate in, and we do have ebbs and flows, but this is certainly one that's beyond, I think, any analyst expectation. Let's run to the next slide there, and let's see how some of these dollars are used. You'll see how that populated on your screen just now, the $16 billion, the 31% of our gross state product, and then the 428,000 jobs. These are 2019 numbers. Our controller, Glenn Hager, has indicated that obviously we're already in a recession, even though the numbers haven't come out to reflect it. But when you have increasing unemployment rates the way we have and the shutdown of the global economy, not to mention the U.S. economy, we are in difficult times. Every sector of our economy is impacted. Every household is impacted. The numbers on the screen, though, demonstrate that when oil and gas is doing good, every person in Texas benefits. You don't have to be from an oil-producing area to get the benefits of where these dollars are used and how they're used. Let's go to the next slide and see some of the areas that our state legislature used these dollars the last time around. I know Representative Jay Dean, Longview, Senator Brian Hughes from your area, and I talk frequently about how to make certain these dollars are available to be used in the most appropriate way. These dollars come from what is called the state's rainy day fund. Technically, it's called the state's economic stabilization fund. Currently, that fund has about $8.5 billion. 100% of the dollars toward the rainy day fund comes from the oil and natural gas industry through severance taxes that are paid that are dedicated directly to that fund. Now, last legislative session, the legislature appropriated about $6 billion from the rainy day fund toward many essential programs and services here in Texas. This is an indicator of how those dollars are used, and even after that allocation, the fund balance is still very healthy at over $8 billion. But let's look at some of how those dollars were used. Almost $840 million was used and dedicated to the Water Development Board in Texas to deal with flood issues and grant funding for flood-prone areas. A little over $400 million was dedicated to Health and Human Services to improve state hospital facilities. Some of those dollars are going right back into the East Texas community, and the Rusk State Hospital is getting a significant boost to modernize their facility, care for some of those that are most needy in our society, And Senator Robert Nichols was very involved in that process, and we appreciate his leadership. Over $1 billion was dedicated from the rainy day fund that is paid for by oil and natural gas toward our retired teachers. And what a great use for these dollars to ensure that the pension fund is sound, to provide for an additional funding check for retired teachers during 2019. And we're proud of the dollars and the way that we use to support our teachers who play such a vital role in our state and our state's economy when you think about getting our workforce ready. And then over $800 million was dedicated to the education agency in Texas that would go directly to schools. And so these are just some of the ways. The next slide, if you'll turn to that, demonstrates even more ways that these dollars are used. So the oil and gas community paid directly $1.5+ billion in property taxes from mineral properties producing oil and natural gas, pipelines, gas utilities, and related operations. That's an astounding amount of dollars that went directly to our public school districts. Some dollars also went directly to our county coffers in these producing areas. Two areas that benefit everyone is our state's permanent university fund. Over $1 billion was generated and placed in our permanent university fund. And as you'll see on the backpacks on your screen, those are dollars that are divided up between Texas A&M University and the University of Texas systems, or really those campuses actually, I think is where that's dedicated at. Now, my Longhorn friends like to tell me that the reason that the permanent university fund is divided 2/3 to UT and 1/3 to Texas A&M is because A&M got first choice. Now, as an Aggie, that's very offensive to me, but we have to take the punches the way they roll, I guess. And but if you think about $1 billion going to these world-class universities, it is very amazing. And it's a great thing for everyone. Additionally, another over $1 billion was sent to our state's permanent school fund, a fund that General Land Commissioner George P. Bush operates and manages for Texans. This fund is now the nation's largest educational endowment last year because of the growth that has occurred. So if we'll go to the next slide, we can see here that if you think about world markets, which is part of our problem today, quite frankly, but we know that 95+% of the world's consumers live outside of the borders of the United States. And so when Congress lifted the export ban a few years ago, we started exporting and producing more crude oil. Significant numbers, like millions of barrels a day more, we grew. And our markets are for foreign markets, not only for crude oil, but for LNG, liquefied natural gas that's going around the world. Liquefied natural gas is the reason I want you to know that the worldwide air conditions are improving. Emissions are being reduced worldwide because of clean liquefied natural gas being shipped from the United States to countries all around the globe. And further, most of these products are coming from the Gulf Coast. Particularly, crude oil exports accounted for 70 to 80% of the crude oil exported from the United States to global destinations last year, and we're excited about the role that we play. And as we think about influencing world markets, and we can go to the next slide, and just think for a moment, there's an article in Forbes a while back about infrastructure and the role that it plays in enabling our energy security, enabling America's energy dominance. And this is an exciting thing when you think about the infrastructure in America and how we've changed geopolitical conversations today because of the role of oil and natural gas. This happened because of upstream production. It happened because of pipelines. It happened because of our ports. It happened because of our LNG export facilities. And it happens because of our refiners who play such an important role of taking these products and converting them into elements that are used in making our everyday lives better that we'll discuss even more. And if you'll turn to the next slide, you'll see that all of this is possible because of research and development and technology. These have literally been game changers that have ushered in this new era of record production in Texas. From the year 2000 to 2016, U.S. oil and natural gas companies invested over $300 billion in greenhouse gas mitigating technologies, more than the rest of the private sector and the government combined during that period. These investments are working thanks to expanded use of natural gas and power generation. Energy-related CO2 emissions in the U.S. are near 20-year lows. Methane emissions from oil and natural gas systems are down double digits since 1990. And this is all while oil and natural gas has absolutely skyrocketed in production over the last few years. The next slide really demonstrates how we got here. The next slide shows us that it's innovation and technology is the beginning and the ending question about this industry's commitment to making things better. From the first gushers to modern day hydraulic fracturing, it's this relentless pioneering spirit that's been a driving force for our industry. The industry has embraced these unmatched investments that have produced state-of-the-art operations. And think about it. These are the types of technologies I'm discussing here today. Data analytics, cloud computing, digital oil field, robotics, automation, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, 3D imaging and modeling. These are the types of technologies that applications have been made in the oil and natural gas industry to make this truly one of the most innovative and technologically advanced industries that it's ever been, the modern day oil and gas is. We're also doing things allowing operators to capture, to store, and to reuse carbon dioxide. We're investing in advanced technology like optical gas imaging cameras and drones to detect leaks. We're making tremendous progress. In the next slide, we'll discuss a few of those things that are being done. The industry has come together and developed some things. One of them is the environmental partnership. It started out with about 20 of our world's leading companies, most of them headquartered right here in the United States. Now it's over 70 companies that are coming together and developing best practices. They are tangibly measuring these practices and how they're reducing methane leaks and how that is making a difference in the operations. We know that Texans can't be outdone, so Texans have come together as an industry and created the Texas Methane and Flaring Coalition. You can go and look at a website at the Texas Methane and Flaring Coalition, and it will identify terminology and information that can help you better understand the real issues surrounding methane and flaring and how industry is making a difference in reducing methane emissions and reducing the need for flaring. Now, if anyone cares about safety, which I know everyone in this audience does today, flaring is used for safety reasons. It's used because of interruptions down the line, and so there's going to be some element of flaring no matter what best practices we employ. But we know through innovation and technology, we're getting smarter, we're getting better, and we're learning more, and we're applying these principles. Our midstream sector is doing that as well. Pipelines are smarter and safer than ever before. They're transporting our product and making them available to communities all across Texas and America so that you have gasoline available in your convenience stores. We know that hurricane season is not far away from this year, unfortunately, one more big issue that we're going to have to deal with. And it's because of this robust infrastructure, and it's because of innovation and technology that we're able to manage through many of the difficulties and making a real difference in our community and in our lives. If we go to the next slide, we need to think about something. We hear a lot in the media today about energy sources. We hear a lot about climate concerns. You know, oil and natural gas is making tremendous environmental progress. We hear a lot about different energy sources. And, you know, our industry is we believe in the free market. We've said, you know, let everyone compete. Let's just do it on a fair and level playing field. And let's make certain that we recognize the electricity that powers our homes or any type of fuel source that might power our cars. Let's recognize that every energy source has a footprint of some kind. We know that wind and solar are renewable, but wind turbines and solar panels are not. And so we're just asking to have a conversation and really look at our energy sources, because as you'll see on the screen there, those are wind turbines that could not be recycled. They've ended the use of their useful life, and they're being sent to a landfill in Wyoming, and it's filling that landfill up pretty rapidly from those wind turbines. We know that other forms of energy and electric cars have issues as well. And so we just think it's smart for Americans and for Texans to think about our energy sources, think about the progress that oil and natural gas is making. And as our next slide will demonstrate, if you think about the products that are made from oil and natural gas, there is simply no substitute for oil and natural gas and what it means for our lives today. And I say that because oil and natural gas are the components of the building blocks for 96% of our everyday essentials. If you use contact lenses or eyeglasses, tires on your car, rubber, Velcro, heart valves, incubators for preemie babies, these all have elements of oil and natural gas in them. If you think about the rubber gloves that are being used today, the hazmat suits, they all have elements of oil and natural gas. Our electronics, computers that we're viewing on the screen today, our cell phones, even electric cars and solar panels and wind turbines require oil and natural gas for the creation of their components. So when we hear outlandish statements made, I think we need to recognize the severity of these consequences of not thinking through our energy choices and recognizing the quality of life that has been established today has truly been brought to us through an available, affordable, abundant supply of oil and natural gas. Now that supply is a little too much, and it's impacting this market, and we're going to get into that pretty quickly. But one more slide before we do is to discuss a way that you can make a difference. And Longview and the citizens of East Texas have participated in that significantly. If you'll look on the screen there in the middle, there's a picture of the Texas Energy Day at the Capitol participants that we hold during the legislative session. You can come down and see Representative Dean and Senator Hughes and have a direct conversation with them as your elected representatives at the state capitol that are working hard for you. We have interactive exhibits that are on the Capitol grounds that you can participate in. We have tents set up, and we have a great meal for you and the legislators to enjoy. And so we really want you to put that on your calendar, February of next year. Surely we'll all be moving around and enjoying moving around this great state by that time. So that's something we certainly want to put on your calendar. The next slide, I want to talk to you about some current things that are happening real quickly in the oil and gas business. As many of you know, the Railroad Commission of Texas conducted a meeting last week discussing the issue of proration. They took over 10 hours of testimony. They had almost 30,000 listeners from 86 countries and 49 states. And there's a lot of testimony about proration, which is the government establishing how much production there can be in oil and gas. Now, I'll tell you, the growth in this industry over the last 50 years is because we have embraced the principles of a free market system. Some may say we don't operate in a free market system when you have OPEC that is manipulating the world's supplies. But the reality is consumers are king. Consumers get to choose what product you want. And in that instance, in essence, in fact, it is a market-based system where consumers get to choose. The United States embraces free market philosophy. This has enabled us to be the best and to grow the most, and good things have happened as a result. We know that global energy demand forecasts indicate that we will continue to need oil and natural gas for the foreseeable future. All reporting agencies and analysts indicate that. The state of Texas has responded significantly, but now we're in a situation that, yesterday oil traded at negative prices for the May futures contract. And so we know that the market will respond because it's kind of simple math. And in East Texans, we know about barbecue. It costs you $8 a pound to make barbecue, and you can only sell it for $4 a pound, you stop making barbecue. You really don't need the government to tell you that. Our next slide will be an indicator of just how the industry is responding. In fact, there has been over $50 billion of capital expenditure reductions that have been announced over a week ago now. That number has increased. These are just from tracking some publicly traded companies. There are others that we haven't captured. There are other private producers that they don't have to announce that publicly. The chart on your right shows the rig count that has dropped precipitously. So we know that drilling plans have been curtailed significantly. We know that operators are reducing their output. The problem is that this is kind of like a big freight train. You don't stop a freight train in a moment's notice. You have to start hitting the brakes and shutting down and doing it in a logical fashion. And we think that operators know their wells better than anyone else, and they're able to do it, and that government stepping in would actually make matters worse than better. And so you will continue to see operators to contract during this period. Most people say the second quarter is just going to be difficult as worldwide supply continues to slow down to match the demand that's left after our demand has really been decimated by the COVID pandemic. I'm excited to hear Governor Abbott, President Trump talk about reopening our economy. Governor Abbott has appointed a strike force to get our Texas economy moving again. And he has appointed me as a work group leader on energy, along with the president and CEO of the electric companies of Texas. And I look forward to working with Governor Abbott to get things moving again. Next slide will give you a number that you can text on your smartphone. If you open your text app, and the only number you need to type in is 52886, 52886, and the word TXOGA in the message line. And if you'll send me a text, it will give you the option if you want to get more information about oil and gas, what's happening in the East Texas area, what's happening at the Capitol. And so if you'll text 52886 and the word TXOGA, it will show you how to do that, and we can get you the information you need on a timely basis. So the next slide just opens it up for questions, and our website is TXOGA.org, just TXOGA.org. I don't think you can see it very well on your screen, but TXOGA.org, and you can go to our website. And Suzanne, that's the end of my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. I might have run over time, but I do have a few minutes if we do have any.
Let's go ahead and open that up for any questions.
One interesting thing as listeners are thinking, I see the front month contract for crude oil WTI today is actually back in the positive territory when it was trading so negatively yesterday. Another sign that it was more market volatility. Obviously, traders are very concerned about available storage space, which they should be. Analysts have been forecasting that for quite some time. But I think the volatility that was experienced indicates that no one knows quite for certain, and we need to pull through this. North American energy security is important, and Texas plays a vital role. We know that at the state and federal level that we need maximum flexibility during these difficult times to be able to push through.
We do have one question that came through requesting if you could discuss this morning's Railroad Commission meeting.
Yeah, so today, in just a few minutes, and then I've got to tune into as well, the Texas Railroad Commission is going to hold another meeting. They have several items on their agenda. They meet regularly. They have rules and regulations, and when operators need permits, they have to go to the commission to get those permits. If an operator doesn't comply with what the permit requirements are, they're subject to fines and even suspension of their ability to do business in Texas. And so even though this is a difficult time, safety and environmental standards cannot be compromised, and all operators are working very, very much to be in compliance. Part of the agenda today at the Railroad Commission is to once again have a conversation about the state of the industry. There are some producers that feel strongly that the government needs to come in and artificially limit how much producers can produce. They started out their request with the Railroad Commission saying that the commission needs to curtail 10% of Texas production. And then they came back and said, well, no, you need to curtail 20% of Texas production. So let's think about that. 5 million barrels a day production in Texas, a 20% curtailment would be about 1 million barrels a day. That would not be noticeable on the 100 million barrel a day global production or the global demand. Demand has dropped to about 80 million barrels a day, we're told, which is the reason for the contraction in prices on the May contract. So the commission will have a conversation about that again today. Our philosophy is that the commission has been very proactive. Our railroad commissioners, Commissioner Wayne Christian, actually from East Texas as well, Commissioner Christy Craddock, and Commissioner Ryan Sitton and the commission staff have done a great job of providing flexibility. We think they need to continue to explore ways to help operators manage through this crisis. We think our state government needs to assist all that they can, and our federal government does as well. We have to be careful that we do it the right way and don't cause more damage than we do good. And we think a proration order would actually confuse operators in terms of interfering with their best management practices. And so the Railroad Commission should be interesting today. We hope they will not act on the proration order, but will explore other ways to benefit operators during these difficult times.
Great. I know you have to run, but we do have one additional question. It's specifically about East Texas. It says, we have an oversupply of natural gas in East Texas, and now oil has caught up. What do you see for the future of natural gas in East Texas?
East Texas has been playing an important role in supplying our national energy needs and providing clean natural gas. And again, I want to reiterate, it's because of natural gas that our air quality has improved, and globally, it's making a big difference as well. We do have an abundant supply of natural gas. If oil production is limited over the next year, which every indicator is that will be the case, we know that it will also reduce associated gas production with the oil production, and so it should be of some benefit to East Texas gas producers if you have associated or casing head gas associated with oil production that's limited. But our big need is to continue to ensure that we get infrastructure built, because that's the only way you can get your product to market. Having ample liquefied natural gas export terminals to supply the global demand for natural gas is very, very, very important. We need to continue to push for that, because that'll be the way that we can continue to ensure that we have a market for our products.
Excellent, Todd Staples. We just got a note that you need to push on to your next meeting. All I can say is what a joy it is to kick off our day with Todd Staples. You have always such a great positive message about our energy sector, and we appreciate your time. On behalf of the Longview Chamber of Commerce, we thank you and the Texas Oil and Natural Gas Association for taking time for your busy schedule to provide us with the latest updates and perspective from the oil and natural gas industry. Thank you so very much. One of the roles your chamber plays is to help create an economic environment that allows prosperity to occur. Together, we will be stronger and we will come through this rocky period stronger than ever before. Again, on behalf of the Longview Chamber, we appreciate your participation. A reminder that the webinar is being recorded and will be made available online at www.longviewchamber.com. For those of you on the line, you will receive an email later today with a link to listen to it and to share it with others. Thank you for being with us today. Take care and stay safe.